Good morning and welcome to episode 2 of Bridging the Gap, where we discuss events in the global sphere of preparedness and response. This morning, we have Mr. Andrew Manson, Summit Law Enforcement subject matter expert. He's a retired FBI special agent with decades of WMD and CBRN experience. We have Miss Angela Leak, a SummitET certified health physicist and radiation protection specialist with decades of experience in radiation regulatory control, and Mr. Justin Walker, who's new to these, but welcome, good morning. Summit Law Enforcement, SME, in response SME, retired Phoenix Police Department, and SWAT operator. Good morning, everybody. How's it going?
Morning.
So in the news recently, and throughout the past couple of years, really, we've seen a lot of stories about missing, lost, damaged radioactive sources, both domestically and abroad. You've seen it in places like Australia, Thailand, recently in Texas. We wanted to take a moment and kind of talk through what this is, because if you're a member of the general public or if you're a responder out there, you've never dealt with this before, never really heard about it, you're like, well, what does this mean to me? What does this mean to my agency? Is this really as dangerous as the news is making it out to be? And what do I need to know? So we want to take a few minutes and kind of talk through the sources, what it looks like, some of the history a little bit, some of the hazards associated, and then kind of what you can do to be better prepared for it. So with that, Angela, good morning. Could you talk to us a little bit about some of these sources that they talk about in the news?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. So I want to start though by acknowledging that radioactive materials are used every day for beneficial purposes across the nation. So just because we hear about some of them being lost, there's active use across the nation all the time, very safely, and we have a regulatory structure that helps to keep that in place. So when we talk about different types of materials, they're used in medicine, research, industrial applications, and they're beneficial for treating cancer, diagnosing cancer, and keeping our infrastructure strong, like roads or pipelines. So the US NRC and the agreement states across the nation regulate all types of radioactive material. And depending on what type of material it is, bases what kind of regulation is over that material. So some of the higher activity sources have more requirements for security and oversight of their use. And one common device that's kind of out there in the world and used very frequently is called an industrial radiography camera. And this is used in an industrial setting to check welds or structural integrity of critical infrastructure. And it uses a really strong gamma source, a radium-192. It's kept in a very robust, secure, shielded container nearly all the time. But when it's time to take an image, they crank the source out to where they want to take the image, and it's out there for about 30 seconds or so, and then it's cranked back in. And the controllers and the operators that are using this device are very well trained, and the regulatory structure oversees how they manage the material, how they're using the material, and the type of training they have. And the NRC and the agreement states work really closely with the licensees to make sure that the location, the storage, and the use of this device are very protected. So bottom line, really, like, individuals can't just go purchase this equipment and go use it and have it in their back closet. There's really stringent regulations that are in place. But even with this regulatory structure, things happen, as noted throughout the session. So when something does happen, though, immediate notification is required. The licensee has procedures in place of what they need to do. And the regulatory entities work with the licensee and other response agencies to make sure they can work to locate the source and make sure we put mitigation in so it doesn't happen again. So, Andrew, from your perspective, has this happened a lot? What's out there in the world?
Thanks, Angela. What Angela's saying is, law enforcement has to be proactive with these things. So a lot of times what local law enforcement, the FBI, will do is they'll establish relationships with companies that use these kinds of things so that they get that notification a little bit earlier and they react to it a little bit more than maybe a stolen power drill or stolen tools out of a truck. These things are stolen from time to time. It's not uncommon, but usually they're being stolen when a criminal steals a work truck, doesn't exactly know what's in the back, but he takes the truck. Also, sometimes these things are packaged in a big Pelican case. It may look like something expensive. They steal it. They open it up. They don't know what it is. They can't really sell it. And then, sometimes they just throw it away, which is also a problem. But sometimes, and the reason law enforcement reacts as quickly as they do with these things, is in the wrong hands, they can be dangerous to the public. In 2019, they had a situation in Phoenix. Justin, you want to tell us a little bit about what happened there?
Yeah, absolutely. So In April of 2019, there was an individual named Jared Atkins. Jared Atkins was employed by a company out in the Arizona area, the metropolitan Phoenix metro area, that specialized in non-destructive testing, right? So they would have these radiography cameras in their possession constantly because of the work they were doing. Well, one night he ends up getting into a fight with his girlfriend, kind of loses his mind a little bit. They get in a fight. He leaves his apartment. He goes about a quarter mile away to a convenience store. He ends up stabbing a clerk at that convenience store. He then leaves that store. He goes to his place of employment, and he ends up stealing 3 of these radiography cameras. So Atkins worked there, right? So that makes him an insider. So he had access there. He had every reason to be there. He had knowledge about the devices, about the sources, and he could go in and out of that building kind of at his own will. So he steals these sources about 1 o'clock in the morning, and then he sends a text message to his fellow employees and his coworkers saying, "Hey, I've snapped. I have 3 sources. Stay home until they're found." So this is kind of the first case, or one of the most recent cases, where we know that these sources were stolen with an actual malicious intent. At that time, I was working for Phoenix PD. I was on our special assignments unit, or our SWAT team. We get called out to try to help locate this individual. Spend some time trying to find him. Us, along with the FBI in the Phoenix area, are working together trying to find this guy, see where he's at. But we can't locate him for a long time. He's actually out and about from the time he takes the cameras to when we actually barricade him up in his apartment is almost 8 hours. So luckily, he ends up returning to his apartment. Some law enforcement that is in the area see him, and we end up working a barricade at that apartment. And luckily, everything worked out, and we end up taking him into custody. We end up finding all 3 of the radiography cameras. They were in his Jeep that was parked maybe 100, 150 yards down the street, and they were all intact. He had tried to remove one of the sources. They could tell that the camera had actually been messed with, but he didn't choose to do anything. The thing that we found out later through some interviews that the FBI did was that he actually intended to take the sources and set up a RED, a radiological exposure device, at a local mall, a busy mall in Metro Phoenix area, and start an active shooter event. So you would draw law enforcement in. He would do suicide by cop during this active shooter, and during that process and the following oncoming process of that event, he would be that RED would be exposing people that are in and around the scene to those sources the whole time. So luckily, he did not choose to do that, or we interrupted him prior. I'm not sure, but we got lucky with that one, and glad it all worked out. One of the things that we had kind of found out is we hadn't had a lot of training, specifically on the SWAT side, on responding to these incidents. We had a little bit of knowledge, but not a ton. So going through this event and actually participating in one was a big catalyst for our department to kind of seek some outside training on how to respond to specific events involving radioactive material, so that if these do happen in the future, like you guys had said, that we respond to them in a swift and quick manner, knowing that, hey, this isn't just a regular burglary alarm going off at this facility. This facility contains some type of source or some type of material, and we need to treat it as such. So that incident really helped us kind of move forward with gaining some of that knowledge on how to respond to these correctly.
That's a great point, Justin, on exercises and training. If agencies out there or members of the corporate world wanted more information, feel free to reach out to us for consultations at our website, social media. Any member of our team could reach out and try to get something going. I don't want to eat up a whole lot of time. I'd like to thank everybody for the inputs this morning. This was a great discussion, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one in episode 3. Thanks.